Good afternoon and welcome to the 14th Regulators and Policymakers Retreat being organized by IPAI here at Goa. We are proud to have the support of the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy as well as the Ministry of Power, Government of India. With me at the IPAI studio is our guest, Mr. Jayant Kavle, Managing Director, Jindal Power Hydro Division. Sir, welcome to the retreat and the IPAI studio. What are the challenges that you face in both?
In the Northeast, where communities and societies tend to be isolated, and they have been used to a particular type of living where the interference from the state government or from Government of India has been minimal. So they perceive the resources, the forest, the water, the land to be belonging to the community. Now suddenly here is one developer who is coming with a mandate from the state government to develop a hydropower project. It is likely to cause a conflict between expectations, and you need to resolve that conflict to ensure that you take the people along, to explain to them how they are going to benefit from this. Certainly they will have expectations of employment, of business, etc. How do you integrate these aspirations and these expectations with the needs of the project? Unfortunately, in the Northeast, when we try to work over there, we find that people resort to this. Actually, it should be the last resort to call a bandh, but sometimes it becomes the first step. Obviously, people have genuine grievances, but what is the magnitude of those grievances? How many people are affected by this? What are the steps that you have already gone through? Has there been a dialogue with the policymakers, with the administrators, with politicians before you are calling this bandh? I think these things need to be looked at. The net result is that all economic activity, whether it is projects, and projects is only one part, but other economic activity also gets crippled.
India has had a very rich heritage of hydro projects that have been superbly successful. For example, the Bhakra Bias project, even the Hirakud project. Why is it that hydro projects in the last 15-20 years have started to face all these problems?
Well, I mean, since you are giving the example of the Bhakra project, it was the Prime Minister himself who spearheaded the consensus making about this project. So when you have such a towering personality as Pandit Nehru was, who is spearheading this, obviously the social consensus will happen. We don't seem to get that much involvement from highly respected political figures or otherwise in the development of hydro projects. Particularly, the problem comes in when there are private developers who are now trying to develop projects. So they are seen to be working only for profit, and they are seen to be neglecting the social aspect. Now this is something that can be overcome only through dialogue and by convincing people.
What does the project developer really do? I mean, what sort of model can he use? Have there been case studies of similar successes anywhere else in the world or in India?
Well, in India itself, I would cite two states, Himachal and Sikkim, fairly successful. I think the projects in Sikkim are going on very smoothly, and so are they in Himachal Pradesh. I don't think there is any particular issue. I think there is a great amount of involvement from the state governments of these two states in development of these projects. I think there is a need for the state governments to look at this as an equity partner.
Can we really start developing a hydro project by first setting up a school and an educational institution in the area and then working towards the success of the
Absolutely, we have plans to do that. And as a first step, we already have in Raigad, where our thermal plant and our steel factory is, we have an engineering college and also a community college, so which is for skill development at a lower level. So it is one step below a polytechnic. People like plumbers and bricklayers and such trades, carpenters, who are also required in large number. It's not just engineers that we require or supervisors that we require.
Looking at the other end of the spectrum, sir, currently the state of play in the power market is such that you're having prices as low as ₹2.30 being quoted in the power exchanges. It also seems that a whole lot of discoms and utilities are actually buying power in the short-term power market. What kind of implication does this have on the hydropower sector, which really needs long-term contracts to come up and secure that?
Absolutely, it has huge implications. And I hope utilities realize the folly of this policy that they are following, that if you rely too much on short term, I mean, you can get hit very, very badly.
So finally, sir, what is your wish list from regulators and policymakers to expedite the development of hydro projects in the Northeast?
See, firstly, the point that you mentioned, that utilities need to be persuaded that it is in their long term interest to go for not just long term power, but a balance of long term power, balance between thermal and hydro. Secondly, time of day metering and time of day tariff. I think the time has come where some states have already introduced it long time back, but it needs to be done in a big way, in a, I would say, bigger way.
There was this discussion a few years back that we need to have a UMPP policy and a proper package for hydro, just as we have for thermal. While thermal took off, it may have run into rougher in certain areas, but fine, it's doing pretty well. Why don't we have something similar for hydro?
You know, it is not possible for a simple reason that hydro is a state subject. Now, as it happens, the states who are sitting on hydro resources are not big consumers of electricity. Their consumption is very low. So, essentially this power is for export to other states. So, the interest of this host state, let us call that, is to get maximum out of revenue out of the allocation of this project. So, it takes the form of upfront payment, or it takes the form of more free power than the mandated 13% free power. Whereas, the UMPP thinking is that the project will be allocated based on the least tariff that the developer will offer. Here, the states allocate project sites based on the maximum revenue and therefore the maximum tariff that will happen. So, there is a fundamental contradiction here.
Absolutely.
And therefore, it is not possible.
Right. Looking at the case of Bhutan, where Bhutan's GDP has suddenly shot up in the last few years because of their export of electricity to India, isn't that another model that states like this can look?
Bhutan projects are very heavily supported, and rightly so, by Government of India. There is 60% loan from Government of India given to the project, and 40% is given as grant to Government of Bhutan for taking equity in it. So, it is 100% funded by Government of India. So, it has no issue of reaching financial closure. Now, it operates as a merchant power plant. Every 5 years, the tariff is renegotiated between Bhutan and India on the basis of the prevailing tariff in the country. So, what more do you want? Why should the project not be successful? And why should Bhutan not benefit from such a successful project? Try and applying the same formula in Arunachal Pradesh, everything will be successful.
So, do you think we need to have basin-wise development of hydropower projects, or should we go all at once?
That's another holy grail. Basin-wise development means that then you will concentrate on one basin. What do the other guys do? Wait for your 25 years till this basin is exhausted. What happens to those projects? How do we speed up this process? Firstly, now the allocation has been done, so there is nothing much you can do about it, except that those who are squatters, not doing anything, their project should be cancelled and should be reallocated in as rational a manner as possible. The second thing, that the state upfront payment that it gets, it should reinvest a part of it in activities that will support hydropower development, like development of the infrastructure, some transmission, development of educational institutions, which will upgrade the skills, etc.
And this has not been tied up for any of the projects as yet. There are no state commitments for development of the
I
local
don't see that happening.
Right.
How the state, of course, it is their prerogative. It is their income, and they are free to do what they like with that upfront payment. But I would have wished that at least a part of it would go into a fund which will maximize the value of these hydro projects for the state. I am not saying it should be for the benefit of the developer, but for the state. Then comes the transmission issue. Unless the transmission is planned properly, all vision you might have anything, but it is not going to be realized. So, some kind of a support is required, because this conundrum that what comes first, project first or transmission first, will never be solved, because all projects will not come at one stage. One project will come here, one project will come there. It is happening like many things in our country in a uncoordinated and rather chaotic fashion. We have to find a way out of that. So some kind of a support is required, and then why shouldn't the National Clean Energy Fund come to the rescue and make this sort of uncoordinated investment in transmission at least initially supported, so that PGCIL doesn't say, look, I mean, I'm going to develop a transmission line, if the project doesn't come, what happens? Because you can't develop a line only for, let's say, 400 megawatt if the project is 400 megawatt. Another project comes, another 400. How do you upgrade this line? So you have to take all these things into account and plan a line with the optimum capacity.
Pooling stations and so on.
That costs money,
Right.
and that money will not be recovered from the initial projects. So temporary support is required to make this happen.
Mr. Kavle, thank you so much, sir, for your
Thank
deep
you, Raghav.
insights.